Let's go then. This is pre-show. Let's look at, I was looking at, I was going to post this. This is uh, weekly sectors, weekly scoring for the positions in the top 12 weekly scoring each week. There's no kickers. Quarterbacks are still prominent. Running backs so far this year are a little bit high. Tight ends pretty low. And you can see tight ends only 15 have made it into the top 36 in the first 7 weeks there. So and running backs, you know, kind of have. I need to look at last year to see what these numbers are. And, just look at these patterns. It would be nice to see what's what. And you can see how your quarterbacks have behaved, your wide receivers. And if you're curious, what are the average points per sector weekly? This is the average points here. So you can kind of see where, you know, after about 108, it's below 10. So, it's getting lean there. And, but the top 12 is spitting out 30 points.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you can figure out a way to keep your quarterbacks or running backs or wide receivers or even tight ends above, the top 12, you're making some money there.
Yeah.
And so I, I'll have this out for our people to look at. And so then I decided I wanted to look over the weeks. And so I colorized the top 25% in the first 7 weeks, Dennis. And then I colorized the team name that had at least 3 weeks in the top 25%. This is not per player, this is by position. And you can see what teams, their quarterbacks, for instance, and you can see all the patterns. And then the ones that haven't had one top 25 or below, I stained in red. A lot of red, a lot of red, more than I probably would have thought.
Yeah. What was this again in the red?
These are teams that their weekly scoring for that position was below the top 25%,
Oh,
zero
gotcha, gotcha,
or
gotcha.
one week. So it's a measuring of the weeks, kind of like the comms. So this would be a zero, Arizona. They have
Yeah.
not had a quarterback pop in above the top 25% over
Yeah.
this. Yeah, that's not good. And I decided to break it first 3 weeks versus next four and take a look at teams that had zero first 3 weeks and look at what they did the next four. And there's a lot of predictiveness. Arizona, nothing first 3 weeks, nothing the next four. Carolina, same thing. Cleveland, same thing. Cincinnati, boy, thank goodness for Flacco, but they were sad. So you can start, look at Houston, look at Green Bay even. Jordan Love has not been doing what we want him to do. The Chargers have only had two, and but you can start seeing, what's changed as things change. Look at Mahomes. Just one out of three first 3 weeks, but boy,
Four in a row.
best besides Dallas. Look at
Yep.
Dak.
Yep.
Look at what Dak did first 3 weeks and that. So you can start seeing some of these patterns. I like to look at these patterns over the weeks, Dennis. So I have all this for the running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think it's a good reference for people, for trading, for dynasty, for just how things look. Look at, you can see Baltimore, and then after,
Oh,
extra
with,
sad.
without Lamar, that
It's just
entire
crazy. Yeah, it's
yeah,
completely
how is the running back looked for Buffalo?
Buffalo.
One or I'm sorry, for Baltimore. So just one and then
Uh,
two
they had
since.
two, so
Yeah.
yeah, not too bad actually.
Hmm.
But somebody like Denver, extra sad. Cincinnati, extra sad. Chicago had one. Carolina finally perked up with Dowdle,
Yeah.
but then they split him out again. So again, I'm not looking at the top. I'm just looking at all of them. I'm just looking
Right.
at the running back. I just think it gives you a better. I look at Atlanta, Bijan, pretty
Oh
much
man, he's been a machine.
5 out of 6,
And same
Dennis.
with Detroit, four out
Yeah,
of
yeah.
seven. Yeah.
So look at
Ooh,
Indiana.
Indy.
Look
Wow.
at Taylor.
Three in a row.
Yeah, 3 in a row. The Chargers have been doing okay. Uh, you know, and but then some of these other teams, New England, New Orleans, the Giants. Again, this is looking at all running backs. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh's been doing good. Tampa Bay's been doing good.
But that's the top scorer.
This no, this is all of them, Dennis.
Oh, the all running back points
All running
combined.
backs that got a snap, that got anything.
No, no. What I'm saying is but it's showing the best
It,
running back for that week.
no, it's not showing the best. It's showing
Okay.
all of them, just an
So,
average.
but it's not. What I'm saying is this is total points for the running back position by team, or is it
Yes,
in? Okay.
it's average. So if there's three
Okay.
running backs, one of them does, 20 and the other ones do one, then it's 22 divided by three.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Again, I, this is my landscape idea. I just like to get a feel for that room, you know, just see what's what. I
And then
mean,
you can break it out by volume to decide if it's
yeah,
one
I mean,
or
I just
yeah.
looked at total points. Just
Interesting.
a way to look at it differently. I
Yeah.
think people focus too much and not the team, but on the player. And I think things
Right.
get lost. I mean, for instance, I think you know that Indianapolis, but can you imagine how valuable DJ Giddens could be? I mean, kicks out of four. Look at Vidal is viable. Ollie Gordon would be viable. I mean, so you could almost use this to predict where you might want to, if CMC goes down, Guardo might be extra valuable. And
It's
you
similar.
mentioned it. I mean,
Yes.
there are other
Similar to what I'm
ways to
yeah,
figure that out.
it's similar to what I'm doing with the next
Yeah.
man up concept
Well, it
is
is. I mean, it's just another way to
yeah,
look into that. But it's
I like
just,
that.
yeah. So I'm gonna put it up for people
Look
to.
at Tampa. Tampa's been great because, Bucky was doing fine. And then now Rashad White's been doing fine the last 3 weeks, two of the last 3 weeks anyway.
Yeah,
And you know that only one is getting the volume.
yeah, yeah. I
So
mean, it's deeper level, but this is
yeah,
where you start.
versus
And-
Washington where they've been not so good and you're splitting the volume
yeah.
between three
So
guys.
this
So
is detecting a lot of that.
very interesting.
Yeah. So again, you just sometimes just simple looking at the landscape gives you
So
a taste of what's happening.
so for tight end, for
Yeah,
instance,
same thing.
Pittsburgh is probably doing great, but the problem is
They're splitting it.
how many guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
splitting it just last week.
Yeah.
But Otten is really look at he's come on.
With the injuries to wide receivers, he's been a huge stud.
Yep.
Very interesting. I
Yeah,
like,
so this
yeah.
is a way for you to get a taste.
Look at Warren with Indy.
Yep, look
3
at
out of the
that.
last 4 weeks
But
after,
boy, it was
you know,
sad the first three. But what's interesting, you could ask the question, if you have 3 early weeks that are sucky, is that predictive of the next four? And I'm telling you, in quarterbacks, just when I was going to get deeper and show this Saturday, but I wanted to at least, if I get a chance, but I think predictiveness looks like quarterbacks first 3 weeks, unless something changes, like, Cincinnati, unless something's changing, whew, it's pretty predictive. Cleveland, you better change something. Look at the Jets. Look, I mean, Wilson just tore it up week 1, died away, had a little bit, Fields, and then last 2 weeks. I mean, it's been crazy, just like Miami. Look, 2.1.
wow. Look
It's
at look
bad.
at look at Dart coming on here in the
Oh
last
yes.
couple of
Look,
weeks.
well, look, there it is right there.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, so this just gives you a mechanism to look, and it invites you to get deeper, to ask the question, what's going on, right? So it just another way to look at New Orleans. Juwan Johnson early and nothing. Just whoosh, I got something. Look at the top, the best. No, look at
Yeah,
that, the best, and now the one of the worst.
nothing,
Yeah,
nothing.
that kind of. Here's wide
Wow.
receivers. Wide receiver. So anything in green is 4 or better, or maybe no 3 or better. Three out of the 7 weeks. So
Wow.
yeah, so you can see who's doing it. Look at Kansas City's perking back up. Thing is, they do
Yep.
cut that volume. So again, I agree. You're not catching the full kind of ceiling for the one player, but you're getting a feel for the
Yeah.
complete room. Look at the Chargers.
Look
I
at
mean,
Los
they
Angeles Rams
early,
with 2 guys. Yeah.
yeah, and then now without Puka,
Yeah.
eh, that worries me long term. That kind of thing. So it's a way to gauge what's going on and see what's happening in the complete room and see what's going on. And imagine we could do home and away if
Oh, yeah.
you could maybe, figure it out that way, especially the whole season, you know.
Right.
And then it would be nice I haven't looked at home away splits being predictive for next year, but Detroit's certainly a case for that. They're back to being, they love that.
Oh,
They're home, and
they just
Atlanta's got
feed at
such an
home.
extreme home. And
The
now Atlanta's got
yeah.
Miami this week. They
The
should
the
spank them hard.
the weirdest thing that we've been seeing this year, in my opinion, I don't know if it's new. I don't know if it's if it's just a coincidence, but there are some teams with a huge home away split as far as how
Yeah,
effective their
I don't
defenses are.
remember it being this. I've got, last year's data, and I just hadn't.
That
Uh,
that crowd noise for defense, I, maybe some stadiums like
could be.
Detroit, Kansas City, Atlanta are three that come to mind. Maybe that noise factor
Yep.
is
I mean,
is
you could look
also,
at the decibel
yeah,
level. You
yeah,
could probably find that data out there somewhere.
Buffalo's another one. I mean, they just seem to have a look at Detroit. Like the last 2 weeks with Detroit's defense, they got absolutely manhandled by Kansas City at Kansas City. They came home against Tampa, who had been putting up huge amounts of points, and they made Tampa look silly for most of that game. I mean, it's there is something out there with this home away split stuff that it's not just strength of defense. There's a big factor with noise that's coming into play because some teams I don't think have any advantage. Like when Kansas City in the past has played in LA or Vegas, it's almost sounded like they were the home team. But you go to Detroit, you go to Atlanta, you go to Cincinnati, it is so freaking noisy there.
Yep.
But it's, Cincinnati's defense must really suck because they're not defending anything home or away, nor is Dallas. And
Yeah.
Dallas has a huge, noise factor. Could you imagine how shitty those defenses need to be not to be able to defend the home turf with all the noise?
Yeah, that is crazy.
Because Detroit is an average defense. And especially now that I mean, all 5 of their starting secondary players, all 5 guys that they started the season with are gone because of injuries or one because of suspension last week. Yet they looked great against Tampa. It's
and Dennis, if you want,
here.
I can get a little bit more into this on the predictiveness. In other words,
Sure.
I'll maybe come back Saturday then for our
Very
pre-show.
good.
We'll talk about
Very
that.
good.
So if you want to start the show, we can.
Yeah, let's crank it up. But man, I'm intrigued with data. You know me and data. I see new stuff, man. I get really excited.
In our secret clubhouse meeting, you got to see secret stuff, and now you got to see a little bit of this secret stuff.
When you see patterns emerging, they're really, it just shows you do get rewarded for hard work in this business. Financially, we will be rewarded by all the extra stuff that we're doing. And I got 13 teams out of 20 in the playoffs right now at FPPC. So I'm looking to make some money, and I only have 2 teams that are like hurting. 2 teams outside of 50 points. So I have a good week with the right teams. I'll have 14 or 15 teams in the playoffs out of my 20, and that includes both dynasty teams are in the playoffs now. So
Dennis, just because it's you, but I like to be quiet, but I'll show you where I'm at on some of my teams. It's my position right now. 1, 2, 3.
Very nice. That's some great play, man. That's good stuff.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of like 36, Dennis.
I've noticed 1,000 is the magic number for being in first place.
Our River Valley crawfish, we're going to have if we can just survive, it's just so hard with these best ball to survive. But anyway, if you go down all the way to, I've got a lot that are already 6 or better, so I'll be making
good money.
But I've got 10 that are either first or second.
That's fabulous, Professor. That's great.
A third of my teams. Yeah, these are is good living right now, Dennis. I got one sucky team.
Yeah.
I got about 4 or 5 I think are really, and probably I haven't checked, those could be the Burrows teams. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those teams.
My neighbors' teams and some of these other hits I've taken. What can you do? But anyway, folks, I mean, this could just disappear, as you know, but I've been
Oh yeah.
working my butt off trying to, keep going here. So anyway, I thought I'd
Yeah,
show that, Dennis.
that's fun stuff, man.
I don't want to,
I love when I see success, man. I
yeah,
just because
it felt good to see 8 teams number one right now.
oh, that's fabulous. That is fabulous. That is the key right now is to be ahead of the game going
Yeah,
into the second half of the
yeah,
season because
yeah,
it becomes harder to catch up because it gets harder to find those hidden gems. First few weeks on waivers, you can make some really good pickups, and
yeah,
then it starts getting lean when you're having. I have one team with Bimageddon and injury issues at running back
yeah.
that I'm going to be excited to pick up Devin Neal to play as a starter, this week. That's how bad it's getting. But I
It's
knew week 8 was going to be a tough week for that team
yeah,
because I have Gibbs and Montgomery, and I've got one other guy who's on bye this week.
yeah.
I had ETN on that team, and I
Mhm.
also had Gianti on that team. So I'm like, this is going to get tough.
So
Oh no, it wasn't Gianti. It was Kyron Williams that I had. So to have 4 of my running backs
and,
on bye
and
at the
and
same time is
just
going to
to
hurt.
let you know, if I can hit 4 wins, that breaks me even this
Yeah, isn't
year.
that fun?
So I'm double where I need to be, you know, to make,
Loving it.
yeah. So
Loving it.
I'm looking forward to trying to maintain 8. If I got 8, that'd be nice, Dennis. That'd be it'd be one of the better seasons I've had.
Well, let's get 10 or more
Yeah,
in the
I'm
Vic.
obviously greedy.
That would be
Anyway,
good.
we should start the
Yeah.
show. Yeah.
Here we
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Loving that. Love to see that success. Here we go. How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the Science of Fantasy Football. Why the Science of Fantasy Football? You get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to use the scientific method, and that just means we're going to be a hell of a lot smarter using statistics than the average bear. And joining me as does each and every week. Hey, you get them here twice a week on the Science of Fantasy Football, an additional time on the matchup lab over at the sports affiliation. He is the fantasy professor. He's a real professor. It's John Bush. And
Yeah.
John, Bymageddon is here. 6 teams on bye, plus all the injuries. This is going to be a week that you're just hoping to survive.
I think the quarterback there's still moving pieces here. We just, crazy stuff from the Jets. Lamar, we're hoping he can come back. I think Jaden Daniels is going to miss another week. It's just nutty crackers this year. In our FFPC, I usually try to get 2 quarterbacks, but having Lamar has been really. I've had to draft 3 quarterbacks to cover those situations. It's been lean in some of these weeks, even before week 8. It's been lean trying to figure all this
Two,
out.
yes, and 2 of my value play quarterbacks that were my quarterback 2 backups that I didn't need except for during the bye week for my starter. Those guys were Goff and Stafford were 2 of my common guys.
Yeah.
They're both off this week. So that adds a little insecurity when your starters were guys like Daniel. So
Yeah.
that gets to be kind of lean because I've got teams with Daniels or Lamar or had Burrow as my starter. I've
Right.
done fine playing Stafford or Goff, but now both on bye. I just want to patch and fill this week and get on to week 9 because once you buy this Bymageddon, I have one team professor on FPPC. 6 guys out this week because of bye. I knew it was going to be a pain, but I figured I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to survive 1 week and I'll have a strong team the rest of the time. As always, we'll be consulting and making entries in that diary.
Yeah.
And I will know next year whether that was a smart strategy or a strategy I want to avoid next year. I didn't worry about buys when I was drafting. The only exception is obviously I took quarterbacks that didn't have the same buy, but like I said, sitting pretty with Daniels and Goff or Daniels and Stafford until Daniels gets hurt again. And now he'll be out. Taylor is now questionable with the Jets.
That's crazy.
It's just gonna. I wonder if he looked at the wide receivers that he'll have if Garrett Wilson misses, and he said, "No, I'm okay. I think I'm holding the clipboard this week because he's going to have Josh Reynolds and Ellen Lazard as 2 of his most healthy wide receivers. That's pretty scary when the team hadn't been playing good anyway."
It's lean, Dennis. It's a lean time. You just got to keep plugging along. I just can't tell you how you should just keep doing it. You're just trying to make the playoffs. And sometimes it's
Yes.
hard to remember that. I know. Remember, we take our losses twice as bad as our wins. That's just
Oh
human
boy.
nature, and it
Yes.
bugs you more. And so in your diary, make note of that, especially if you're coming off weeks where you had a lot of losing teams, then maybe that's you should worry about your decisions and waivers or something. I mean, you could track something like that. If you're very emotional, there are ways to deal with that, but first you got to be honest, and that's why that diary can maybe help you out a little bit. And maybe you need to draft a solid quarterback. Maybe you should sacrifice some strategy a little bit to have, I mean, even of course with Lamar, you thought you had that covered, but there are some psychological advantages to having a sure deal, Dennis, and where you're not tearing your hair out too much, right? So you need to decide, just your personality types. And I've done some video lessons a few years ago out at my video thing where you look at, how anxious you are, these kind of things. Just, maybe you need a solid quarterback. Maybe that just drives you nuts. And if that knocks you off your game in other places on your team, it might be better to be, just sacrifice a little bit of strategy and just, I got to take a solid quarterback. Look at your diary. Have you done better there? Maybe that's some of the reason you've done better. I always worried about that and wondered, that what happens. Like for me this year, I got a little too aggressive with tight ends. We're in tight end premium. And in retrospect, given what's going on these days, I've done better with my later tight ends. And that they're causing me heartburn now. Those early tight ends that I thought, were going to be better than they have been. I know injury you can't predict, but Bowers is the main example there.
Oh yeah, Bowers is killed people this year. I am very happy to say 18 teams on FPPC
Yep.
and 6 additional redraft teams for money. So
Yep.
that's, I mean, we're talking 24 teams, 0 shares of Brock Bowers
Yep.
because I made the decision that I just wasn't going to overpay
Yep.
for a tight end this year. Now I have some shares of of Trey McBride, and I had to pay a premium to get
Boy, you
him.
did. I mean, he was even going in the first round
He was
sometimes.
going, yeah, I wouldn't take him first round, but I was taking him early to mid second round if he fell that way. So
And now
some of
you
my
think of
build,
some of the players that were
oh,
there,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
And it's interesting, Professor, because a few weeks ago when I wrote the article, you know, at the quarter pole, looking at,
I
the
remember that.
first quarter of the season and looking at the range of forecasts that I did for MVP,
Hmm.
the guys that had a tight and high range were the guys that I was concentrating on this year in drafts, and that worked out quite well.
Good.
But what intrigued me was there were some guys that I had forecasted extremely high, like the Sun God, who
Hmm.
of course, has been my favorite fantasy football wide receiver for the last, how long has he been in the league? Um, but I didn't end up with as much as Sun God as you would think from my ratings, because I went with some neighbors over Sun God in a few leagues. And a couple of times I was hoping that Sun God would fall. Like I was towards the tail end of the first round, and I was hoping, I'm drafting 9th or 10th. I think that Sun God could come back to me. So I went with neighbors over Sun God in 2 leagues. And of course, that has backfired on me. But I don't fault the process. Like the concept was to get a 2-for-1. In a couple of leagues, I did. I got a 2-for-1 on him going as late as the 4th pick in the second round. And of course, if I was sitting at the second round pick 4 and Sun God was there, it took me all of about half a second to press the button, because he was such a value there. And I drafted him end of the first in a couple of leagues as well. But I didn't get as much of him. I didn't get as much of JSN. And I had him, again, one of the guys that I had rated higher than his ADP by a significant margin. But it was at that point in the draft, I was going running back, or at that point in the draft, and that's how I didn't end up with as much JSN as I should have had based on the success of the rating. So it sometimes shows you that rating a player is one thing, but it's that draft day decision
Yep.
that will sometimes just be the quirk of and here's the thing. I ended up with a great player
Right.
because I took some Jonathan Taylor. I took some, I took some Kyron Williams, guys like that. I took guys at a similar draft position as some of these guys that I didn't end up with as much of. And it wasn't a bad decision. Like it was a good decision, good player that I got. But when I got to the end of the draft season, I was like, wow, I would have thought I would have had a little more of that player. The good thing is at quarterback, I took very few early quarterbacks. And when I mean early, guys that were taken before Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Okay. I took a lot of Patrick Mahomes and later. So I ended up again with a lot of Baker Mayfield, a lot of Dak Prescott. Those teams are doing incredibly well. I only had one out of 24 teams, actually had 6 of my redrafts were all super flex. Okay, over on Sleeper that I played through the Ballsville Game Network. And those teams, I had 2 shares out of 6. I had, I had 1 share out of 6 of Burrow.
Yeah.
And that, of course, has hurt me because it's super flex. But I ended up with 4 out of the 6. I have Patrick Mahomes. So I am doing quite well in a number of those leagues where I got Mahomes, because Mahomes is the top quarterback and you didn't have to pay top quarterback capital. whenever you could do it. I have a couple of teams with Ferguson at tight end. He's really 1 and 1A with McBride, but because of the difference in the draft positions, Ferguson was a huge bargain. But it's interesting when you look at about, we're almost halfway through the regular season now, and you look at it. Well, we are halfway through the regular season. You look at everything and you go, okay, these decisions I made, for better or worse, they made sense at the time, and they have worked out pretty good. I have a lot of Pittman. He's been doing well for me. It's looking back, it's like, did you expect Indianapolis to be one of the top teams in the league? No, but I have a lot of Pittman and a lot of Jonathan Taylor, because the MVP ratings for those guys last year on a bad team, the forecast was for better numbers. So I didn't expect them to be this good, but I'm being rewarded for just beating consensus on this. And that's the key sometimes, is that's the benefit of in fantasy football forecasting. You don't have to be exact.
Yeah.
All you have to do is be better than consensus. And if you're better than consensus, you're going to have success, even if you were slightly wrong on a particular player.
True. And I did want, since waivers could be running this week early, I love this chart that you had in your article. And I colorized it. I don't know if you've
I
seen
love
it.
how you colorize it.
Yeah. So
Yes.
anyway,
Yes.
folks, this is, potential trade targets or waiver wire. Some of these are probably not available. Dennis has got the ones that probably are. We just did a little bit of work on why people like Gowendo, Gordon are, key uh, stash and hold people, and I showed you the weekly fantasy point data, and I'm going to do some more Saturday when we record. But anyway, uh, Wilson and Green Bay
Oh.
seems to be nobody's paying attention. Do you get the? What do you think about that when I see your list? And for instance, do you know there are two teams I'm bidding for tonight with Giddens, and he's in my
Oh yeah.
tra-
Yeah.
uh, uh, Ray Davis is out there in one.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yep.
still able to fish a little bit, and I think this week everybody's looking elsewhere. Giddens doesn't help you this week, right? Even Neal, which is get in New Orleans, you don't have here, but people are talking about him, but he's not going to help you this week. I just wonder. I think you can get him cheaper than you think, so he's in my list as well. So I've got players that I need this week, kind of, money wise and fab. And then I've got these dollar players that it's like, man, I can't walk away from Giddens or Gordon or Gorindo
No.
for a dollar. So I'm just lining them up. I'm not going to pay big money, but I don't, this could be a really good week, Dennis, for some of these, because people are, Ray Davis, people are looking elsewhere. Right? They're not,
Yeah.
these are not household names for this week. People are panicking and this, that, and the other. And folks, I think it's a good week while everybody's looking one way that you look another. And this is, Dennis has got you a chart here. So take a look at some of these names if they're out there. These are good targets. These are not all your targets, but here's some you mentioned in your article. I've got some other ones. I don't know if we should probably won't talk about them because I don't need anybody poaching my secret stuff. But there's some out there that are still very suspicious that you should consider as well.
Yeah, there's two ways you have to look at waivers every week. Okay. One is I have a hole that I need to fill because of buys and injuries. I've got to fill this, or I don't have a real viable starter for that position. That's the emergency waivers. Okay.
Yeah.
And last week I had a case of that at tight end, and
Yeah.
the two tight ends that I went after were Fant and Otten. And when I was looking at both of those guys, I was not looking at anything past 1 week. I
Mhm.
knew Otten was a good value because Tampa Bay's got so many injuries to wide receivers that he would have a better opportunity last week than he has all season long. And Fant Gasecki goes down. Now he's not splitting shares over there. Plus, he's got a quarterback that likes to throw to a tight end. So, and you got two great wide receivers. They're going to command the attention. So I liked him, but not long term. Okay. It was a patch and fill situation. This chart is part of my all 32.
Mhm.
Looking,
You forget
looking
what
back,
it
reasoning
says.
forward,
Yeah.
looking back, reasoning forward.
Yeah.
That was your title, and I loved it so much that I stole it from you. But this is my attempt to put some math to the equation on next man up. Okay.
But
This
you
is
got to do that, Dennis. This defines your thinking. You don't see people do that. They will give you a list
yeah.
and maybe they'll say this or that, but I just don't think that's thought. I like it this way because you're not telling them to bid $6 on Giddens. You're just saying, my opinion, his value is 96 out of 100. Let people decide in their context how valuable that is versus what they can do or not do. For me,
Yep.
Ollie Gordon might be work better at a 72,
Yes.
that kind of thing. I
Yes.
like it that way versus if you say $6 and $4 and $2, you're thinking, well, it's hard to imagine that six and two is three times, the two. This way, it's very clear out of 100. People are used to thinking 100%. So
Yes.
this is a good tool that way. That's why I want us to do that. And that's why I try to got you to do that over the summer
Oh, I love
is
it.
this is
Love
a
it.
way to think about things. And I think it gives you clarity versus bids $12 here and $5 there. Well, what's the
And
relationship? You don't know.
yeah.
This you know.
And earlier this season, the top value guy or one of the top value guys was Kamani Vidal.
Oh, I
He was
remember.
way up that list. And of course, I said $1 bid. Najee Harris is out. Hampton's the starter. Vidal won't be anything until something
I
happens, or if
remember that
something
week when
happens,
it was happening.
$1. And
Yeah.
the very next week, Hampton got hurt. So it just shows you. And this is the strategy. Here's the concept. And again, beta testing this, but beta testing it live for everybody to see. So it values the position based on the MVP 25. So it's just this year's data.
Yes.
What is this position producing? And obviously, Indy is producing, man. Taylor's having a hell of a season, but that position doesn't go totally away just if Taylor gets hurt. Like I'm using a 70% of his value, and then I'm using a percentage based on my confidence that Giddens would be the man. And
Right.
back a few weeks, I was all in on Vidal. I said 80% Vidal, 20% Haskins is the man.
Yep.
And Haskins was getting the snaps. Vidal was inactive a couple of games.
Yep.
And everybody was on Haskins. I said, you could get Vidal for $1 this week. because people are thinking Haskins. And even when even when Hampton went down, I said to bid 300 on Vidal. You didn't even need to bid
Yeah,
300 on out of our
I
thousand.
talked about that last week.
Oh man, I was shocked that people were on Haskins. And this is why it pays to pay attention to the market. Like for right now, if anything happens to Jacobs in Green Bay, Emmanuel Wilson is the man. Now, there was a time when I thought Brooks could be, or it could be a 60-40 decision. Now it's like 80-20. It's Emmanuel Wilson. He's the guy that I would rather own. Now, here's the thing, though. If I couldn't get Emmanuel Wilson, I would put in a secondary bid for Brooks. If I've got an empty roster spot, let's say somebody's out for the season, and at FPPC, if somebody goes on IR, you don't have an IR slot to hold them. So you have to decide, do I want to kill a roster spot for the next 4 to 6 weeks? Or, and with Hampton, I'm holding him.
Right.
I even have one team left where I drafted Mixon, and I'm holding Mixon because I haven't needed that roster spot yet. But you have to make those decisions and you have to float guys. I still think Ray Davis would be the guy next man up.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm saying Giddens is going to take over for Taylor, or Davis is going to take over for Cook. It just means if something happens, the next man up are these guys. And look at Jadon Blue. His value went up considerably when Miles Sanders went down.
Yes.
Because now we know that Jadon Blue is the next man up. And, how do we know that? Well, we're making that
Assumption
that he's the next man up. We're making that assumption, but I'm putting math to work. I'm saying he's an 80% likely to take over now. It was 60-40 between him and Sanders before.
Yes, I
So
remember
every week this chart updates. Monanjay, at one point, he wasn't a guy that I thought. I was like 50-50 on him.
Yes.
So it was either Roshan Johnson or Monanjay. In fact, that's how I declared it. It's an even bet. One of them's going to take over if something happens to Swift. And in Swift's case, it could be just he's not doing well and they want to go a different direction. Kansas City's in that boat right now, but it's Brashard Smith or Kareem Hunt, and the value of the position is much less because it's not producing a lot of fantasy points. So this it's the logic behind this says it should work. It worked with Vidal already this year. It's worked in Arizona because when Connor went down, it was obviously Trey Benson. And there was a lot of value to that position. In fact, at that time, he was an 81, so we knew that Benson was going to be the man, and he was the one you wanted to own if he was available. Now, some of these guys are not available in many leagues. There was 0% of Rachaad White out there. And I was still showing Bucky as the lead back.
Yep.
Even though White's been the lead back for the last couple of weeks. Now, if Bucky was declared out for the season, then this would adjust and Tucker would go in there.
Yep.
But the value would adjust because White has been lower in his MVP than Bucky Irving. And strange enough, he's right at about 75% of Bucky Irving. I use 70% as my estimate. So it's, the math makes sense. And the idea behind this chart is to work ahead. Now, I'm not going to drop a starter for Giddens.
No.
But there's always a speculative wide receiver.
Well, this week, Kendre Miller, I'm having to find
Yep.
people. Yeah, I mean,
Yes. You, you
yeah,
all you either have a roster spot that came open because of injury,
yeah.
but
Evans.
Evans is another guy. He's gone. This is redraft. We're not
I mean,
saving him for next year.
just to jump in. I saw today said 8 weeks or
Yeah.
earlier. Come on, really? Early? I mean, so now it's just like I can't keep him for 7 weeks off.
No,
I just
no.
can't. I'm gonna let somebody else draft him if they want him. So I'm letting him go.
Yeah, and you have to make those decisions because we don't have an IR slot. And
No.
I like that because it adds another layer of strategy
Hmm.
to the mix. But, I do a lot of speculative, what I call speculative wide receivers. Okay. I'll take a guy with great upside. If he gets the job or if the job turns into his and
Yeah.
the offense is good. So I'll grab Isaiah Bond for $1.
Yeah.
I'll grab Kendrick Bourne for $1.
Right.
And this is before Bourne did anything.
Right.
So I'll have these guys on my roster and I might use them. I might have to use them for a week or two when I've got injuries or during buys. But if all of a sudden I'm in a situation where I've got my 4 starting wide receivers and I got 1 decent spare, and I've got one of these speculative wide receivers on my roster, I'd get rid of him now.
Yeah.
I had some Juju Smith-Schuster shares early in the season when Worthy and Rice were gone.
Right.
I had some Tyquan Thornton shares when those 2 guys were out. That's a dead roster spot, in my opinion, now.
Yep.
Could he have a good week? Yeah, but he's more likely not even to get on the field enough to produce the volume you want. I move on because ordinary wide receivers or those speculative guys, there's always another one like Shamari DK or DK, I guess they're pronouncing it with Tennessee. He's a speculative guy. He's a rookie big play guy that I'll plug in if I had to, but I don't want to be leaning on that guy every week.
Nope.
But if I lost Garrett Wilson, Puka Nakua, and Egbuka in the same week, now we've got Egbuka to play, thank goodness. Well, let's see, you lose 3 of your starting 4 wide receivers. I'm glad to have one of those speculative guys on my roster. But that's what that chart is all about, is replace and have a guy before you have to pay more than $1 for him. Have that next man up, especially. Now, you had Jonathan Taylor on your roster and you didn't have Giddens already on your roster. Shame on you.
Yeah.
Because your top 2 running backs should be handcuffed if they're available. And they should have been handcuffed right from the beginning of the season.
The only one that was the hardest to get was Algier because everybody was awake to that.
And he was the least.
And Madison in Minnesota was hard to get with, let's see, who was Jacob? No.
Behind Jordan Mason behind Aaron Jones.
Yeah. That was hard.
Jones is coming back now.
That's good.
Soon. So that's good too. But here's the thing, folks. There's some guys like Algier is going to be maybe 50% of what Bijan is. There's other guys, though. Giddens might be close to 80% of what Jonathan Taylor is because it's the system.
Well, you have the process that you're elucidating, but then you also have the variation in what they might turn out to be.
Yes.
So it's a double speculation.
Correct.
If you think about it.
And we haven't seen what Giddens can do.
Nope.
Now, we've seen what Monanjay can do with Chicago when he's gotten some usage. Ooh, he looks pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So I'm really thinking that if Swift goes down with an injury,
Yeah.
Monanjay's probably 85%.
Yeah. I
Minimum.
felt good about my shares of him, seeing that this
Yeah.
week. Yeah.
Oh,
In fact,
yeah.
I'm having to play him in one league.
And we had one of
Well,
our
what can I do? I
yeah.
mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And one of our speculative picks early in the season and even in draft season was Woody Marks.
Oh, yeah.
And Woody Marks is now looking good. I
Yeah.
mean, I think he's going to get the volume going forward. Brashard Smith with Kansas City was another one. We're not saying these guys were instant draft and plays.
Nope.
Okay. Brashard Smith had some points last week, had some volume last week because it was a blowout.
Right.
And he all of a sudden became very popular. Nobody in our leagues was getting him because he's already on our roster.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
So,
already, yeah.
but those are the kinds of speculative picks you make because there's going to be injuries. There's going to be guys that just aren't very good. And you got to have that next man up mentality.
Like
We had Sampson, up early for Judkins, got a couple of good weeks out of him before Judkins came back. The thing is, don't be afraid to churn your roster.
Nope.
Just churn your roster, not with ordinary guys, but with guys that could have a big impact. Those are the only guys you want to be adding to your roster, unless you are patching a starting position for this week. Then I'll grab a Darnell Mooney if I needed him. I'll plug in somebody like that who's going to get you 4 to 7 points because it's better than a 0.
Better than
But
a 0.
But when I'm making my waivers moves, I'm hoping like 18 teams, 18 redraft teams, and 2 dynasty teams over on FPPC this year. So 20 total teams that I'm looking at waivers at tonight. I've got 1 out of the 20 where I'm having to make what I call an emergency waiver ad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you've got more than 2 of those out of 20 teams, then you didn't prepare very well. Yeah, it can happen. But I have a dynasty team with 7 guys. 7 of last week's starters are on bye or crazy. Injured this week. There's 11 starters. 7 of them are on bye this week. I had viable choices to stick in at every open position. I didn't have to worry about an emergency ad. That's how playing Dynasty changes your outlook and lets you learn how to prepare a little better than redraft. Sometimes in redraft, we get spoiled because we've got a nice roster, even our long shot picks paid off, and all of our running back, rookie running backs that we took are starting to emerge this time of the year. And we have to make decisions on our rosters. You get to a starting roster on some of my teams and, like my dog could pick the starters this week, because they're the only ones that are playing and not hurt. Yeah. The buys and injuries have reduced my choices, and I might have guys that are all going to score over 10 points or projected to score over 10 points, but there was no real brain power used in those decisions. And then I have other teams that thankfully I have to sit there and think, okay, do I play Pittman? Do I play Olave? Who do I play? If you're having to decide of those last 2 flex spots, you're probably having a good week.
Yeah.
Even if I'm wrong on who I picked, I'm probably still having a good week. It's the teams that you're looking at, you're going, holy moly, I better hit this waiver pickup or I am going to be taking a big donut hole. Those are the teams that you're looking at, you're saying, just Lord, let me survive this week without getting beat by 150 points. But yeah, it's waivers. If you're using your emergency waivers on more than 10% of your teams, you haven't used good strategy. And thankfully, I only have one team last week out of 20 and one team this week out of 20. So I'm doing something right on the majority of the teams when I've only painted myself into the corner once out of 20 times.
Agreed. So for this week, Dennis, I went ahead and I know we're going to talk about Thursday games.
Love these
Power
power
ranks.
rankings. Love these
Yeah,
power rankings.
so Indy is highly favored above Atlanta, then Tampa Bay, Philly, Chargers, KC. There's your teams in green. So
Woohoo!
you would be moving many players, hopefully play a lot of them, play them all kind of concept there. And the teams that I'm lean about, Tennessee, train wreck, Miami, oh my goodness.
Ugh.
Cleveland, their defense, the only thing keeping them alive.
And
Jets,
Judkins. Judkins in the defense. That's the
yeah,
only thing
yeah,
that's
yeah,
Cleveland's got.
yeah. And Carolina and Washington.
Ugh. Washington with injuries
Yeah,
galore.
so there's some lean times there, but again, this can set the landscape for you, especially for flexes this week. I want to think that, and and I like Dennis's thing, if you're playing multiple players from the teams in red, think long and hard about why that is. Just be cautious if that's what, yeah, Cleveland, we know you're junk guns. Okay. Miami, A Shane. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's some that are obvious.
So you're ready for a different way that I'm using this power rankings the last 3 weeks?
I know. Tell me something different.
Oh, you're gonna love this.
Oh,
So
okay.
every Tuesday at the
Yeah.
sports affiliation, I am Pop. I'm the guy who has to pick guys from outside the top 12 at quarterback and tight end that are expected to finish inside the top 12. And I have to pick wide receivers and running backs from outside the top 24
Right.
who I think are going to finish inside the top 24. So for the last 3 weeks going into this week, so for
Yeah.
weeks 5 through 7,
Yeah.
I started recording because every time I make a pick, I write down the information and what I based the pick on. And for the last 3 weeks, I have been trying to concentrate on having and I can't always do this because I have to pick guys outside the top 12 and the top 24. And right now in Indy, you don't have anybody,
No. No.
So, but what I've been trying to do is to concentrate as many of my picks from the top 5 in the power rankings that are in the green,
Yep.
the top teams, or the top 6, I should say. 80% of my hits are coming from those top 6 teams. 80%. So this week, I have 4 of my 5 guys
Okay.
from that group. The only one who I'm taking outside of that group is with the New York Giants, Jackson Dart at quarterback. But Mahomes isn't available. Herbert's not available. Hurts, there's
And
there's
some
not.
of him is just that when you look across at what they've got for wide receivers,
Oh yeah.
it's lean. So he's able to do something that a lot of quarterbacks can't do. They elevate those guys. And,
Yep.
people talk about that, but actually seeing it in is amazing. And he is one that is like, yeah, I understand when you're saying elevate. A quarterback is elevating your team. Baker Mayfield has kind of been do some of those deeper wide receivers. The Tez Johnson, the
Yes.
Johnson brothers, and
Yep.
he's made them more than I thought they would be. And so that's something to put in your diary as well. If you spot, so for next year, I think everybody's on Dart, but maybe there's some other rookie quarterback that is coming on later that hadn't even arrived yet. Maybe he's just, get a chance to play late. Just watch and see are some of the wide receivers that are not well thought of or highly ranked or somehow doing more. That might be an early sign. And so, end of the season, I'll be watching for that just to see for next year. Everybody's going to be on Dart next year. He's going to be, probably over.
Oh, he'll be expensive. Yep.
Yeah, and that's sad. Just like Nick's was this year.
And Daniel Jones will be overpriced next year as
Oh
well,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he probably will have some regression.
And
It just
remember, it's value. It's not, I mean,
yes.
everybody in the NFL's got talent or they wouldn't be here. So now it's down to value for us. And
Well,
so,
last year is a case in point. Baker Mayfield had a top three MVP. Okay, he was over 120
that's
on his
crazy.
MVP.
Yeah.
He was being drafted along with guys that were in their 60s and low
Yeah,
70s
that's
in
just crazy.
MVP.
So if
That's
you
why I took
plotted
him.
that, Dennis, you could
Yeah.
just run and just, well, what's the problem here? Well, look at this. That's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and again, it's when I look at the draft season where these guys were going,
Hmm.
I had my MVP forecast for them. And I was like, well, hell, I'm going to take the guy at this point in the draft who's 25 points more valuable
Right.
than anybody else around him. I'll go down swinging with that. And if my prediction's wrong, my prediction's wrong. But I didn't even have to be right. I just had to be better than consensus. And those guys are going to be overpriced next year, more than
Probably.
likely.
Yeah,
And
probably.
Mahomes will be priced
Yeah, he'll
ridiculously
he'll
high.
bounce back up.
But we might still find Dak. We might still find Baker cheap,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
You
But
never know.
but but that's the way I've been using your power
Well,
rankings,
that's interesting.
professors,
I'm
because
glad.
four of my five, I got Pacheco and Rashi Rice.
Yeah.
I've got Kate Otten with Tampa Bay,
Uh-huh.
and I got AJ Brown, who is 25th in points right now. I get to choose him for 1 week,
Wow.
and I put him in as well. I'm feeling pretty good about these picks. And then I've got Jackson Dart, who's just kind of that. Now, I would have picked if Cousins was announced as the starter, I would have taken Atlanta's quarterback,
Oh yeah.
but I don't trust Penix. So I'm staying away because I know a lot of the Atlanta power ranking is because, unlike Jackson Dart, who's been turning his,
Yeah.
pardon my expression, chicken shit wide receivers that are left on the roster
Yeah.
into chicken salad,
Yeah.
um, you know, Pitts and London are making Penix look
Look good.
better than he could otherwise.
And
But
and
I'm not,
Bijan by being
and
there
Bijan's
is
carrying
shaking
them.
up
Yeah.
the defense and
Oh,
they can't, cherry pick against the wide receiver and the tight
no.
end. So he
Yep.
he, does it as well. So Penix is in the best place he could be for potentially his talent.
But look at where Indy is on the power rankings this week.
Yeah,
They are
and I haven't
so
done
far above.
yeah, Dennis, I haven't done any kind of Vegas odds or, to look at that gap to where the money line or,
Yep.
that's something down the road. I just, like I said, if I had interns, I'd have this kind of metrics to where we could actually have some actionable betting information like, oh, if you have 10 points in power rankings, the money line is just you can ignore it and bet to win, regardless. but we don't have that information. Or maybe there's some parlay secrets in here, Dennis. I've been doing pretty good at picking this year in the TSA,
So,
and this
so
is available to
I,
everybody in the TSA. I don't know
I,
what they're doing.
I think Vegas has looked at your power rankings.
Yeah, they don't want
Have
nothing
you
to do
seen
with me.
have you seen the movement of the money line in that Indy Tennessee game? Because you
Uh-uh.
have teams at the opposite end of the spectrum here.
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever seen that
I
lineup this year where you've got the best versus the worst.
yeah.
So it opened it opened at a minus 383.
Oh my goodness.
Today,
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
you would have to give a minus
Oh man.
1,266.
Oh my God. That's
That's a
crazy,
one
didn't it?
to that's a 1 to 10 shot
Oh my
at the
goodness.
track. I'm not betting a 1 to 10.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy business. Yeah, that's
Oh,
crazy. Well, we should probably move on to our Thursday thing here. Here's the landscape, folks, for this week. We got three potential great scoring matches, our Huskies, and we have
ooh,
two
yeah.
sad, sour. It's that milk at the
Ugh.
back of the refrigerator you grab before you reel the date. It's amazing, right? Sell by, and the day after, it just completely is buttermilked or whatnot. That vinegar in there, hate that.
And
But yeah,
heard a great comparison.
yeah,
Somebody said this is the difference between a finely aged scotch and
yeah,
a chug of milk that's been out in the July sun.
yeah. I can imagine.
That's the difference
So
here,
we
folks.
got two squirrel
Ew.
games, and
They aren't the worst squirrels we've seen, though.
no, no, in the 30s, yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll be focusing on the Chargers in Minnesota here. So, Dennis, let
Yeah.
me turn to that so
Smack
we
in
can
the
go get
middle.
some supper here in a little bit. Thursday, 8:15 Eastern, 25-19. So they got Minnesota with Wentz playing 3-point spread, 44 and a half there, so 45. It's about average. People have been squawking that the underdogs have been winning on Thursday. And I
Ooh.
don't know if you'd heard that, but if you look, I think all the last Thursdays have been underdogs. So maybe it's Minnesota's time. The Chargers have a rough and tough landscape. It's below average on running and passing, and the tight end is tough. But they are a streaming defense this week, and Minnesota actually could be a streaming. But Minnesota against the Chargers, it's just showing the quarterback has an opportunity, but everything else is rough and tough. So
Oof.
Wentz is not mobile. If that was Dart with his
Oh.
mobility, or Allen that, can get you 40, 50 yards and run it in, I'd be happy. But now, whew, I mean, I understand Vegas thinks it's close. These DAPs just say this is a 30 something scoring game there. And I'm not running away from players, but I'm not looking to. I mean, you got to play Jefferson, you got to play Addison. I'm not looking forward to playing those this week. Chargers have one of the lowest efficiencies in the league. They're 20 out of 100. Minnesota 64 out of 100, so much better. Chargers love it home, away, Dennis. They are 20% less efficient at home. So Chargers are at home. And at home, they like to pass 29% more and rush a little bit better. So Chargers, yeah, they don't pass or run less away, but they do well away. That's really strange.
Huh.
Minnesota is 10% less set away, and it's all about the pass for Minnesota, plus 14% passing. So you can figure Jefferson, Addison gets theirs. Maybe even Naylor slips in, and if you're in emergency mode, he might get you 8 points this week. It's just the adapts say be very cautious this week on anybody, but you got to play your studs.
So here's an interesting thing is these dApps are real. Okay. The depth data is real, folks, but it doesn't always catch up with what's happened the last 2 weeks.
No, this is over the last
This is
7 weeks. Yeah.
This is a 7 week window. Over the last 2 weeks, something weird is going on with the Chargers.
Uh-oh.
And I think it has to do with the fact that they've got so many injuries on the offensive line right now. They're at they're using their fifth different guy at tackle. Okay. Because of injuries. I wonder if that lack of a running game is putting too much pressure on their defense, because the last 2 weeks combined, they have given up 65 points. And 65, that's over 32 and a half per game instead of the 19 and a quarter that Vegas is forecasting. And a team that has given up over 60 points in the last 2 games would not have any tough dApps at all. They would be all easy.
Easy or above average, yes.
All easy or above average. They would not be tough. So something has happened, and maybe it's injuries, or maybe it's the fact that they haven't been able to slow the game down with a good running game, because they have not been running the ball well. They gave up 288 yards in the air last week,
right,
to the Indianapolis Colts. And if you'd say, oh, well, that was just Indiana Jones. Well, they gave up 137 yards rush to Miami the week before, and they gave up over 200 yards passing. So they really aren't the Miami Dolphins scored 27 on them. So they did win the game because Herbert played incredible. But I'm wondering on this over-under, I think it's going to be, I think it's over.
You think?
I think it's over.
You think so? And Minnesota, they're both above league average. Minnesota, I'm looking at their power rankings.
Yeah.
2.9, and Chargers 5 points better, 5 times. So,
I don't think LA is going to lose this game.
Yeah, but you think the score is going to be higher and Minnesota is going to be closer?
If this wasn't, and I said this last week.
So you wouldn't take the spread.
I would go with the over. I would go with the over. And because I think Minnesota is going to score in the 20s.
Yeah.
And I think the Chargers are going to easily score in the 20s. So I like because Minnesota's been giving up points recently too. And that's the thing, is like both teams, the last 2 weeks, Minnesota's given up 45 points and 21 last week, 49 points. They've given up over 20 points 3 games in a row. And that included the Browns. So we're not talking juggernaut offenses only. We're talking Steelers, Browns, Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles are going to put up a lot of points on anybody.
Right.
Steelers are going to be in the 20s against people. That makes sense. But the Browns even put up 21 on them. So I can't see Minnesota putting up less than 21 points.
I will say, if you look at the the passing attempts, 30% more Chargers, 14% more Minnesota. So if you look kind of just the
Interesting.
landscape, if
Yes.
we look at it like
Yes.
that, it's implying that both teams will be way above league average. I probably should look at what's the average for both teams passing and rushing under certain conditions. Again, I need interns, ESPN, so I can really, hone this thing down.
So,
And
so remember last week I said if this game wasn't Monday night, or it wasn't a Thursday night game, that I would expect almost 60 points to be scored. And there were 64 scored last Thursday night. I feel the exact same way with this game. There should be 50,
I
should
just
be
hate
55.
Yeah, I just hate Thursday. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm
And again,
biased.
the DAPs are real, folks. The DAPs work, but you've got to
Well,
look at
it's an average, Dennis.
correct.
It doesn't mean they're in stone. It just gives you a
No.
distribution. And
Yes.
this is saying that the average over 7 weeks has been pretty low for giving away points to those positions.
Yeah, and right now the money line is plus 149 for Minnesota. So that if it was closer to plus 200, I'd take this bet every day of the week. But I like the over. Like I think there's going to be 55 points scored. And here's
Wow.
I think 55 is what I'm expecting. And I'll write that down. So we'll see how well I do we can talk about that on Saturday, how bad or how good I did on that prediction.
Yeah.
But remember last week I said I think it's going to be 55 to 60, and there were 64 scored.
Yeah.
Because I did I qualified and I said I hate Thursday night. So I'd be a little leery, but in this case, the way the Chargers have been playing recently, my question is, do the Chargers score 25? That's the question. That's why I wouldn't bet either the money line on the Chargers or lay the 3, because I don't have confidence in the Chargers the way they played the last 2 weeks, nor do I have confidence in Minnesota with the way their quarterback play has been. But I have confidence that there's going to be points scored because both defenses, just the last 2 weeks, Minnesota's given up 50 some points and the Chargers have given up 57 over 60. So I'm like, yeah, both teams should be scoring 3 touchdowns in here without any problem. Throw in a extra point or two. We're talking 28-24-ish type of score is what I would expect. So I'm way over the over under. My only thing is I hate Thursday night football. As far as players you're playing, obviously you're playing your studs. You don't worry about the DAPs.
Nope.
And especially with the way the Chargers have been giving up
I'm
points.
probably having to play some more Vidal because I probably don't have some choices.
I actually think this is a good week for Vidal. Haskins is out.
He had almost 8 points last week. It wasn't great, but it wasn't 0 either.
No, but you take Haskins away. Okay.
Yeah, that's got to help.
And the only other running back that they have active right now is Nyheim Hines, who's returning.
Is there any wide receiver that can run like a Debo that they used? Is there any surprises like that?
Not really.
Okay. I just didn't know if some of those youngins.
They might try a little bit with Lad McConkey,
maybe a
but
sweep
that's not
or
his strength.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see that happening with them. I see it. If Vidal cannot get it done, it's going to be another Herbert throwing 55 times game.
Yeah.
So, that's the Herbert looks good here. I really, I know the DAP is not, DAP says below average. We don't worry about below
the
average.
Below or above. I'm not.
We don't worry about those.
Right.
No. We worry about easy and tough.
In other words, if I had a better shot, then I'd play it. But if this was my play this week, I wouldn't bust the bank to get somebody else, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
I would
I
play
think
Herbert.
yeah, and I think the Charger. I got to research this, but
I like
I
him.
don't spend a lot of time looking at defenses
Which
as much as I should.
we do need more of that.
But I do believe there's got to be some reason. This is why I look at the last two games.
Yeah.
And if the last two games, if one they gave up 10 points and the other one they gave up 24, then I don't say that 24 is powerful. But when they've given up a lot of points the last 2 weeks, I look at that and then I look back and I was like, man, they even let the Browns score 21 on them. I just can't see Minnesota scoring less than 21 to 24.
Yeah.
And the Chargers should be good for 24 to or so. So that's just there is, I mean, we're talking 45 to 48 with the minimums.
Gotcha.
I love the over in this one.
I can
And
tell.
yeah. Yeah.
In fact,
It,
folks, I would say Dennis has mentioned that 4 or 5 times. And if I remember, it is rare that he's so Dennis, I think this is a measure of your probability in your head.
yes.
And see,
Yes.
you should put that down. If we ever do a betting thing, you should ask yourself, how many times would I say this in 10 minutes? And there's probably a threshold to where, if I say it 5 times, it's time to bet that mortgage. Tell your wife, here we go.
This
We're,
is an
we're
80.
living in a trash barrel tomorrow, or we're going up to a chateau.
This is an 80% confidence
Okay.
day for me.
But
And
I'm
I
saying,
usually
Dennis, we've
don't
never
step out
done
like that.
that in the betting. If we ever
No,
do that,
no.
because it would be nice to test that, and we probably should get our TSC brethren to help us. We got those pick'ems, and it would be nice if people had a bankroll and we would do an odds like, okay, you've picked your teams now at $100. How will you distribute your bets?
Oh,
I'm telling you, we
yeah.
could probably
Yeah.
get a shot on Vegas if a bunch of us, the crowdsource were saying, a bunch of money went over here. We could have our own little informed pool. I'll bring that up one day down the road, but I don't know if they just look at me like you're a crazy old professor, and I
if we
got
could
that.
if we could get 5 people over there to do it,
But
we'd
I'm
be in good
saying you
shape.
could
Yeah.
say you could run your own informed pool. I mean, that's what Daily Racing Form did. They'd have all those, the TrackMan and the
Yeah.
Sweep and all these people, and they would, you would get some feel about what people were thinking.
And not all games are equal. So this is one where I feel really strong because of recent performances that I feel really good about the over. I would say this week I feel as strong about the over as I did last week. And the only thing keeping me from jumping in with both feet is the fact that it's Thursday night and we know how much chaos
Right.
we can get on a Thursday night.
I got you.
Well, head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. The professor always has some cool new data waiting for you. I got a couple of articles over there that you might want to check out as well. And of course, we will be back here on Saturday for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football. But also check out our other show, the Matchup Lab, over at the Sports Affiliation. And while you're at it, do me a favor, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel for the Sports Affiliation, and then hustle on back here next Saturday for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks.
I love that idea.
I think you should.
That concept of having experts putting their
Well, the thing is,
theoretical money.
there's some ego to it, Dennis.
Oh yeah.
Would you, look like the fool? I mean, as you know, I bet the 50 to 1 shot, and everybody look at this clown. I mean, there's something. You've been at the track, you've seen,
Oh yeah.
and every once in a while, but that's what the good judgment project, I would outline how they did that, and that's why
Yeah.
they turned it into basically a betting, because you could track your bets and see, how good or not. And I realized I couldn't hang with these people. But then again, couldn't predict on the price of the Russian ruble in 6 months. But big Dennis, they had people in there that could,
Well, there
that
are
was
people.
clued in to
Yes.
political events and economic stuff. And I just never been trained in stuff like that.
Well,
Biology usually
yeah.
doesn't move so quick. We're
Yes. Yeah.
talking millions of years for animal change, and it's
Well,
just
that's
way different.
yeah, and there's some success you can have with meteorology teaches pattern recognition. Okay. And
Well, it has to.
if you're not good at pattern recognition, you get eaten alive in
Yeah.
weather forecasting. And the weirdest thing in weather forecasting is some of the most brilliant meteorologists that I knew couldn't forecast the weather because meteorology is a science, weather forecasting is an
It's an
art.
art. Yeah.
And it's the pattern recognition thing. And but I am so convinced. I always joked with my dad about this when he was alive. Horse race handicapping
Yeah. A lot of
is
patterns.
is the absolute best pattern training
Yeah.
you can have, but also the best to understand the concept of humility when it comes to forecasts.
Yeah.
Because you can make some really bad selections. And my favorite thing that always happened at the track, everybody knew why the winner won
After the fact.
after the fact. They'd look at, oh man, this was
I missed this. Look at
he
that
was a
workout.
he was a
Yeah.
bullet work, three works in a row, bullet works. How did I miss this one? And then you play the bullet work the next three races and he finishes up the track. It was just it taught you it taught you the uncertainty of data. And I think that's a good lesson that's a lesson that I don't think a lot of you can tell the fantasy footballers who never learned that lesson.
Nope.
They're the guys that get roasted by fantasy receipts more often
Yeah, I agree.
because they don't have like you and I will put a forecast out there for something and we understand the fragility of forecasting this stuff.
Yeah.
If we know we're going to miss, and I'm saying I'm players, I might miss 2 or 3 out of 10 takes, and I'm okay with that because I know, and it depends on how you define a miss, even. Touchdowns are so squirrely. That's why when I'm giving an estimate on what I think a player is going to produce on Twitter, you always see me say, I think this guy's 8 to 12 points without a touchdown, or I think he's 4 to 6 without a touchdown. I always say without a touchdown because that's what you really need to be forecasting is what's this, because you need to know what the floor is.
Nope.
And I don't think a lot of people think in that way, but that's something I learned at the racetrack.
And speaking of racetrack, Breeders' Cup is not
Woo-hoo.
this week, but the next week. So
Yep.
we'll need to figure out some Friday bets and
Oh yeah.
something. We'll have to do
Yeah.
something. We'll have to
We'll
find
have
a
to have some
bet or
fun with it.
something.
Yeah,
But
we'll have to feature some bets. That'll be a good idea.
yeah, I'm probably gonna make some shots at it myself.
Woohoo!
That'd be
Very
good.
good. Very good,
Let me
sir.
stop
And
recording
next
here.
year
Yeah.
they're in Keeneland.
Wow.
They're back in Keeneland next year. We might just need to figure out a
A
way
way to get there.
to
Yeah.
get up there and enjoy a day up there at the track.
Yeah,
That
it's a
would be
pretty
kind of fun.
place up there.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, because I actually talked to a old friend of mine whose husband goes to the Breeders' Cup almost every year. In fact, this will be the first year he doesn't go
Oh
because
wow.
he hates Del Mar.
Yeah.
He doesn't like the he he bought a seat. I mean, it cost him a pretty penny last year to be in the grandstands, and he was right behind a pole. Like it was like
Yeah.
obstructed view, and that was what they sold him. And he's like, screw that, I'm not going to Del Mar again.
Yeah.
But he'll go to Keeneland. But and Bruce is a character. He's funny. He was in sales his whole career. He and was very, very successful.
Are
So
we gonna
he had
say
to
any
have
bad stories? I probably
no,
should
no. You
stop
probably start. You could
recording.
start recording. Yeah.
Okay.